The message came on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. Admiral Doyen Park was eating breakfast in his quarters aboard the UES Resolve, and his communication screen lit up with an urgent alert. He put down his spoon and read the message 3 times before he believed it. The Galactic Council wanted to meet humanity. For 300 years, the great powers of the galaxy had watched Earth and its colonies from a distance. They sent their hidden probes. They intercepted human broadcasts. They studied human ships whenever one strayed too close to Council space. But they never made contact. Humanity was too small, too young, too unimportant to bother with. Until now, Doyan called his senior officers to the conference room. Captain Unikim arrived first, her uniform crisp and her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was 45 years old and had served under Doyan for 15 years, trusted her more than anyone else in the fleet. Dr. Taiwu Shin came next. He was the fleet's expert on alien languages and cultures. He had spent his entire career studying the Council races from afar, piecing together their history from intercepted transmissions and ancient records left behind on dead worlds. "Read it," Doyen said, pushing the datapad across the table. Yuna's eyes moved quickly across the screen. Her expression did not change, but Doyen saw her jaw tighten. She passed the pad to Taiwu. The xenolinguist read more slowly, his lips moving as he translated the formal council language in his head. When he finished, he set the pad down gently, as if it might explode. "They want us to come to Nexus Prime," Taiwu said, "the council headquarters. They're offering us membership in their organization." "That sounds good," Yuna said. Her voice made it clear she did not think it was good at all. "Read the conditions," Doyan said. Taiwu scrolled down. "We must reduce our military to 30% of current strength. Can only expand to 2 new star systems per century. We must pay annual tribute in rare minerals and manufactured goods. We must submit all new technology for council approval. We must allow council observers on all human worlds." He kept reading, but the list only got worse. By the end, humanity would be little more than a servant race, allowed to exist only at the pleasure of their alien masters. "It's not membership," Yuna said flatly. "Slavery with extra steps." Doyan nodded. He had expected something like this. For years, human intelligence had gathered information about the Council and how it treated junior species. The pattern was always the same. A young civilization would be offered protection and trade. They would accept gratefully. Get out. And then, generation by generation, they would be absorbed. Their culture would fade. Their people would be put to work in council mines and factories. Eventually, they would forget they had ever been free. The Sorel had been a proud warrior race once. Now, they worked as manual laborers on Varic agricultural worlds. The Vintari had built beautiful cities that floated among the clouds of gas giants. Now those cities were empty, and the surviving Vintari served as domestic servants for wealthy council families. The Pale Wanderers had simply vanished. No one knew what happened to them. No one was allowed to ask. "You have to respond," Taiwu said. "If we ignore them, they might see it as an insult." "They'll see our actual response as an insult too," Yuna pointed out. Doyan stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright against the black void. Somewhere out there, the Council controlled thousands of systems. They had millions of ships. They had technology that humanity was only beginning to understand. And they thought humanity would simply bow down and accept chains? They were wrong. Taiwu Doyan said, without turning around. "Draft a response. Tell them we are honored by their invitation. Tell them we will send a delegation to Nexus Prime to discuss terms." Yuna looked surprised. "You're going to negotiate?" No, Doyan finally turned to face them. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something hard and cold. "I'm going to deliver our answer in person. They need to understand that we are not like the others. We'll not be frightened into submission by grand chambers and ancient titles." "What is our answer?" Taiwu asked. Doyan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Our answer is no. Our answer has always been no. You just don't know it yet." Over the next 3 weeks, the human delegation prepared for the journey to Nexus. Prime Doyan selected 12 of his best Marines as an honor guard. He chose his dress uniform with simple black fabric, with silver trim, no medals or decorations. He wanted the Council to see humanity as it truly was. It's not primitive. not flashy, just efficient. Yuna spent the time reviewing intelligence reports. She memorized the names and faces of every major council delegate. She studied their body language, their negotiation tactics, their known weaknesses. If something went wrong at the meeting, she wanted to be ready. Taiwu worked on his translations. Council Standard was a complex language with 17 different forms of address depending on the relative status of the speakers. Using the wrong form could be taken as a deadly insult. Taiwu intended to use exactly the right form, the one that implied equality between humanity and the oldest council races, that alone would make them angry. On the day of departure, Doyan stood in the shuttle bay and looked at his small team. 13 Marines, 1 captain, 1 scientist. 16 humans to face the combined might of 47 alien civilizations. You all know what we're walking into, he said. The council has crushed dozens of species. They think we'll be no different. They think we'll look at their power and decide to kneel. He paused. They're wrong. We've spent 300 years preparing for this moment, not preparing to submit, preparing to stand. When we walk into that chamber, we represent every human who ever lived. Every ancestor who fought and bled and refused to give up. We carry their strength with us. He looked at each of them in turn. Today, the galaxy learns what humanity really is. Are you ready? Yes, sir. They answered as one. Doyen nodded and turned toward the shuttle. Then let's go introduce ourselves. Shuttle lifted off and shot toward the stars. Behind them, the UES Resolve hung in the darkness like a silent promise, round it hidden in the shadows between planets. Other ships waited, thousands of them. Ready for whatever came next? The council thought. They were inviting a weak and frightened species to their great hall. They had no idea what was coming. The council station orbiting Nexus Prime was the largest structure Dojan had ever seen. It was not a building. It was a small moon, hollowed out and filled with the machinery of galactic government. Ships from 100 different species docked at its ports. Lights glittered across its surface like stars brought down from the sky. The human shuttle approached slowly, following the precise path assigned by station control. Yuna watched the sensor display and counted the weapons pointed at them. She stopped counting at 200. They really want us to feel small, she murmured. That's the point, Dojin replied. Everything about this place is designed to intimidate. The size, the age, the military presence. They want visitors to feel like insects crawling into a giant's castle. Does it work on you? Doyan considered the question. No, it just makes me wonder how much they're trying to hide behind all this show. The shuttle docked with a soft clang of magnetic locks. The tube extended from the station to connect with the shuttle's airlock. When the doors opened, a wave of strange smells rolled in alien air, filtered through systems designed for dozens of different species. A group of council guards waited in the docking bay. They were Varric, the dominant species of the council. Each one stood over 3 meters tall, with silver skin, 4 arms, and 6 eyes arranged in a circle around their elongated heads. They wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the harsh lights. The lead guard stepped forward. It's Admiral Dojan Park of the human fleet. You will follow us to the Grand Chamber. Your weapons must remain on your ship. Dojan had expected this. He turned to his Marines and nodded. One by one, they removed their sidearms and placed them in a storage locker. It was a small surrender, but a necessary one. What the Council did not know was that every Marine had been trained in hand-to-hand combat techniques that could kill most alien species in seconds. Weapons were useful, but humans had learned long ago that the most dangerous weapon was the human body itself. The walk to the Grand Chamber took nearly an hour. The guards led them through corridors of polished stone and gleaming metal. They passed doorways that opened onto rooms filled with alien diplomats. They crossed bridges over artificial lakes where aquatic species swam in lazy circles. They rode elevators that moved sideways as well as up and down. Everything was designed to impress. Everything was designed to remind visitors that the Council was old and powerful and permanent. Doyan kept his face blank. He walked at an easy pace, never hurrying, never slowing. His Marines matched his steps exactly. Una walked at his right side, her eyes constantly moving, memorizing every detail. Tai Wu walked at his left, muttering translations under his breath. Finally, they reached the grand chamber. The doors were 30 meters tall, carved from a single piece of dark stone. Ancient symbols covered their surface, the written languages of species that had died out millions of years ago. The guards pressed their hands against hidden sensors, and the doors swung open without a sound. The chamber beyond was vast. Floating platforms filled the air, each one holding delegates from a different council species. Some breathed oxygen. Some breathed methane. Some did not breathe at all. They sat or stood or floated in bubbles of their native atmosphere. All watching as the humans entered, Do-Yan walked to the center of the chamber. A single platform rose from the floor to meet him, carrying his delegation up to the level of the other delegates. When the platform stopped moving, he found himself facing the High Arbiter's seat. High Arbiter Talvin was ancient even by Varric standards. His silver skin had faded to gray, and 2 of his 6 eyes were cloudy with age. But his voice when he spoke was strong and clear. "Humanity," Talvin said, "you stand before the Galactic Council. For 300 years, we have watched your species grow. You have shown ... potential. Today, we offer you the greatest gift in the galaxy. We offer you a place among us." Talvin gestured with his forearms, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed the terms of membership, the same terms Do-Yan had read aboard his ship. Military reduction. Territorial limits. Tribute payments. Observer stations on every human world. Accept these terms, Talvin continued, and humanity will enjoy the protection of the Council. You will have access to trade routes spanning 1,000 systems. You will receive technology that took other species millions of years to develop. You will be safe. He paused, his 6 eyes focusing on Do-Yan. Reject these terms, and you reject peace itself. Consider carefully, Admiral. The Council has existed for 60 million years. We have seen species rise and fall like waves on a shore. Those who join us prosper. Those who oppose us, ... do not. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate watched the small group of humans standing on their platform. Most expected the typical response: nervous gratitude, hasty acceptance, perhaps some minor negotiation around the edges of the terms. Do-Yan stepped forward. "Hi, Arbiter," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "Honored delegates, we thank you for your invitation. We have studied your terms carefully." He paused. "We decline." Word hung in the air like a gunshot. For a long moment, no one moved. Then whispers began to spread through the chamber. Delegates turned to each other, their alien voices rising in confusion and disbelief. Talvin's eyes blinked in rapid sequence. "You ... decline. I do not think you understand. This is not a negotiation. These are the terms. All junior species accept these terms." "Then we are not a junior species," Do-Yan replied. He reached into his uniform jacket and pulled out a small data chip. He held it up so the chamber's sensors could project its contents for all to see. "This is our counterproposal. Full recognition of humanity as a sovereign power equal to any council member. Unrestricted expansion rights. No tribute. No military limitations. No observers." A sound like crackling static filled the chamber. The Krath delegate was laughing. The insectoid creature's mandibles clicked together as it spoke. "You control 12 systems. 12. The Krath Dominion alone controls 3,000. You are nothing. You are insects demanding to sit at the table of gods." Do-Yan turned to face the Krath. His expression did not change. "We were insects once," he said. "We learned to build tools. We learned to make fire. We learned to cross oceans and split atoms and reach for the stars. Every time someone told us we were too small, or too weak, or too primitive, we proved them wrong." He looked back at Talvin. "You built your empire by crushing anyone who might one day challenge you. You see a young species and you move to control them before they can grow strong. But you made a mistake with us. You waited too long." "Gosh." Talvin's voice hardened. "Is this a threat, Admiral?" "It's a statement of fact." Do-Yan smiled, and there was something cold in it. You think you know humanity? You've watched us for 3 centuries. You've counted our ships and measured our territory and decided we are weak. He shook his head slowly. You have no idea what we really are. He turned and walked toward the door. His delegation followed without a word. The chamber erupted in noise behind them, delegates shouting, guards moving to intercept them. But Talvin raised a hand, and everyone froze. Let them go, the High Arbiter said quietly. His 6 eyes followed the humans as they reached the door. They have made their choice. Now they will live with the consequences. Doyon paused at the threshold. He looked back one last time. So will you, he said. Then he walked out, and the great doors closed behind him. 3 hours after the human delegation left Nexus Prime, the emergency alarms began to sound. High Arbiter Tolvin was in his private chambers when his chief advisor burst through the door. The younger Varric's silver skin had turned pale gray, and his 6 eyes were wide with something Talvin had not seen in centuries. Fear. High Arbiter, the advisor stammered. You must come to the intelligence center. Immediately, Tolvin followed without asking questions. The advisor's terror told him everything he needed to know. Something had gone very, very wrong. The intelligence center was buried deep within the station, protected by layers of armor and shielding. When Tolvin entered, he found chaos. Analysts rushed between screens, shouting in a dozen different languages. Data streams scrolled across every surface. And in the center of it all, Director Kelvas of the Council Intelligence Service stood frozen before a holographic display. Report, Telvin commanded. Kelvas turned slowly. He was a Moravi, a gelatinous species that communicated through changes in their body color. Right now, his entire form was pulsing a deep, sickly purple, the color of absolute terror. We've been blind, Kelvas said. For 50 years, maybe longer. Everything we knew about humanity was wrong. He gestured at the display. Images appeared, satellite photos, sensor readings, intercepted communications. We believed the humans had approximately 300 military vessels. Small ships, primitive weapons, barely capable of defending their 12 systems. The images changed. Our deep space sensors picked up unusual readings near the Kepler Rift 3 hours ago. We sent a probe to investigate. Video began to play. It showed empty space black void dotted with distant stars. Then the probe's camera panned to the right. Tolvin felt his heart stop. Ships. Thousands of ships. They hung in the darkness like a swarm of metal insects, ranged in perfect formation. Carriers, battleships, destroyers, support vessels. An entire armada, hidden in a region of space that Council surveys had marked as empty for the past century. How many? Talvin whispered. We've identified approximately 4,000 capital ships in this location alone. Kelvis's color shifted to an even darker purple. We believe there are at least 6 more hidden fleets of similar size. 28,000 capital ships. Maybe more. The entire Council Navy numbered only 35,000. That's impossible, someone said. They don't have the industrial capacity. They don't have the population. Our projections were based on false data, Kelvas interrupted. The humans have been feeding us lies since we first made contact with their communication networks. Every sensor reading, every economic report, every military assessment, all of it was manufactured. Tolvin stared at the screen as more images appeared. Underground factories on airless moons, shipyards hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. Training facilities buried beneath the ice of frozen worlds. A military infrastructure that had been growing in secret for decades. There's more, Kelvas said. His voice was barely a whisper now. Yesterday, we lost contact with Outpost 7 on the border of human space. We assumed it was a technical failure. We were wrong. Another video. This one showed a Council military outpost, a small station crewed by 50 soldiers, designed to monitor human activity. The video was taken from a security camera inside the station. One moment, everything was normal. Soldiers moved through corridors, checking equipment, going about their duties. Then a flash of light filled the screen. When it cleared, half the station was simply gone. Cut away as if by a giant knife. The remaining soldiers scrambled for weapons, for escape pods, for anything that might save them. A second flash. The video ended. "We analyzed the weapon signature," Kelvis said. "It doesn't match anything in our database. Their railguns fire projectiles at nearly half the speed of light. Their missiles use propulsion systems we've never seen before. Their energy weapons cut through our shields like they weren't even there." Tolvin sank into a chair. Around him, the intelligence center had fallen silent. Every analyst, every officer, every aide was staring at the screens with the same expression of disbelief. Tolvin asked, "How did they develop this technology?" "They're barely 300 years old. The Varric have been spacefaring for 60 million years. The Krath for 40 million. How could humans surpass us in 3 centuries? Kelvis pulled up a file. It was a research document written by a human historian named Jisoo Beek. She had been captured during a border incident years ago, and had spent time in council custody before being returned to her people. During her captivity, she had written extensively about human history and psychology. "The answer is in their nature," Kelvis said. "Read this passage." The text appeared on screen. "Humans are not a peaceful species. We did not evolve in paradise. We evolved on a world of predators and disasters, where survival meant constant adaptation. Every generation, we found new ways to kill EAC. Other. We fought with stones, then spears, then swords, then guns, then bombs that could destroy entire cities. When we finally stopped fighting among ourselves. We did not forget how to make war. We simply ... waited. We knew that eventually, we would need those skills again. The galaxy is vast and old and full of dangers. We would be ready. This is what the Council does not understand. They see war as a failure of diplomacy. For humans, war is simply another tool, and we have spent our entire existence perfecting it." Talvin read the passage 3 times. Each time, it made him feel colder. "She tried to warn us," Kelvis said. "We dismissed her writings as propaganda. We were wrong." Doors to the intelligence center burst open. A Krath military commander strode in, his insectoid body clicking with agitation. "We must strike now," the commander demanded, "before they can mobilize their hidden forces. Send everything we have to their core worlds. Burn their shipyards. Destroy their fleets before they can be deployed." Tolvin shook his head slowly. "It's too late for that. Look at the deployment patterns. Their fleets are already positioned to intercept any attack we might launch. They've been planning this for decades. They knew exactly how we would respond. Then what do? Tolvin stood and walked to the main display. He looked at the endless rows of human warships, at the weapons that could tear through Council defenses, at the soldiers who had been training in secret for generations. "We send a peace delegation," he said. "We offer them everything they want. Territory, trade, recognition, whatever it takes." The Krath commander made a sound of disgust. "You would surrender to these primitives?" "I would keep our people alive." Tolvin turned to face the commander. "You saw what they did to Outpost 7. 50 soldiers dead in seconds. Now imagine that weapon turned on our homeworlds. Imagine it hitting our orbital stations. Our civilian centers?" The commander fell silent. Tolvin looked around the room at the gathered officers and analysts. All of them were afraid. For the first time in 60 million years, the Galactic Council faced an enemy they might not be able to defeat. "Tell them we wish to discuss revised terms. Tell them we are prepared to be ... flexible." He paused. "And pray to whatever gods you believe in that they're willing to listen." The message was sent within the hour. For 3 days, there was no response. The Council waited, watched their sensors, counted the human ships that seemed to multiply every time they looked. On the 4th day, the answer finally came. The humans would meet with a Council delegation, but not at Nexus Prime, not anywhere near Council space. They would meet at New Busan, deep within human territory. And this time, the Council would come to them. The Council delegation traveled to New Busan aboard the finest diplomatic vessel in the fleet. It was a ship designed to impress Golden Hull, graceful curves, enough luxury to make even the wealthiest species feel small. High Ambassador Resic of the Varick Assembly stood at the front of the delegation, rehearsing his speech for the 100th time. He had been given one mission: prevent a war. The journey took 2 weeks. Every day Resic studied the updated intelligence reports. The news only got worse. Human fleets were moving into position throughout the galaxy. Their hidden shipyards had begun producing vessels at an impossible rate. And everywhere, on every human world, soldiers were preparing for battle. But there was something else in those reports. Something that gave Resic hope. The humans had not attacked yet. They had every advantage. Their fleets could strike at Council worlds before anyone could respond. Their weapons could destroy entire civilizations. But they waited. They let the Council come to them. They agreed to negotiate. Maybe, Resic thought, they did not actually want war. Maybe this was all a show of strength, a way to force better terms. If he could find the right words, offer the right concessions, perhaps bloodshed could be avoided. The diplomatic ship entered the new Busan system on a bright morning by local time. The planet hung against the stars like a blue and green jewel, surrounded by rings of orbiting stations and platforms. Smaller than Earth, the colonists said, but rich in resources and blessed with a mild climate. Human ships surrounded the diplomatic vessel the moment it crossed the system boundary. They were efficient, professional, and utterly without mercy in their inspection protocols. Every compartment was scanned. Every crew member was identified. Only when the humans were satisfied did they allow the vessel to approach the planet. Resic watched the human ships as his vessel descended toward the surface. They were not beautiful like council ships. They had no decorations, no graceful lines, no wasted space. They were weapons, pure and simple, built to fight, built to kill. The delegation landed at a small spaceport outside the planetary capital. Governor Minji Cho was waiting for them on the landing pad. Race Sik had studied files on Minji Cho. She was 53 years old. She had been born on Earth and had moved to New Busan as a young administrator. She had built the colony from a small outpost into a thriving world of 12 million people. She was known for her sharp mind and sharper tongue. What the files did not prepare. Resic 4 was her smile. It was warm and welcoming, the kind of smile that put visitors at ease. But her eyes were cold. Like looking into the eyes of a predator that had already decided you were prey. Ambassador Resic, Minji said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Welcome to New Busan. I hope your journey was comfortable. It was? Adequate, Resic replied carefully. He had practiced the handshaking gesture, but it still felt strange. Governor Cho, I must say, your planet is quite beautiful. I think so. Minji turned and began walking toward a waiting vehicle. The meeting will be held at the Colonial Administration Building. Admiral Park is already there, along with several other representatives. I suggest we not waste time. The vehicle carried them through the streets of the capital city. Resic looked out the window and saw humans going about their daily lives. They walked to work. They shopped in markets. Children played in parks. It looked peaceful, normal. But every few blocks Resic spotted soldiers. Human marines in light armor, carrying weapons, watching the streets with careful eyes. They were everywhere, positioned at intersections and rooftops and doorways. Ready for anything, the Colonial Administration Building was nothing like the Council's grand structures. It was a simple block of concrete and glass, functional and undecorated. Inside, the delegation was led to a conference room that held a single long table and a dozen chairs. Admiral Do-Yin Park sat at the far end of the table. Captain Unikim stood behind him. Several other humans Resic did not recognize filled the remaining seats on their side. Please, sit, Minji said. Gesturing to the empty chairs, Resic arranged his delegation and took his own seat across from the Admiral. For a long moment no one spoke. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally Resic began. Admiral Park, Governor Cho, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I come bearing offers of peace and friendship. We recognize that our initial terms were perhaps too restrictive. We are prepared to discuss alternatives. He placed a datapad on the table and slid it toward Dojon. Expanded territorial rights, reduced tribute, a seat on the inner council, full voting privileges on matters affecting human interests. These are significant concessions, Admiral. The Council has never offered so much to a species so young. Doyen did not look at the datapad. His eyes stayed fixed on Resic. Ambassador, he said, let me ask you something. Do you know why we declined your first offer? Because the terms were unfavorable, Resic replied. As I said, we are prepared to know. Doyen's voice was quiet, but it cut through Resic's words like a blade. We declined because we do not recognize the Council's authority to make terms at all. Resic blinked. I don't understand. Minji leaned forward. Allow me to explain, Ambassador. Your Council has spent 60 million years building an empire. You find young species. You offer them protection. And then slowly you absorb them. You take their resources. You use their people. You erase their cultures. All while telling them it's for their own good. That is not Resic started. The Sorel Minji continued. The Vintari. The Pale Wanderers. The Kreth Collective. The Singing Clouds. Shall I keep going? We have records of over 200 species that the Council has absorbed or destroyed in the past million years alone. Resic fell silent. We're not here to negotiate better terms for ourselves, Doyan said. We're here to end the Council entirely. The words hung in the air. Resic felt his blood turn cold. You cannot be serious, he whispered. I am always serious. Doyan stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over New Busan, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Here are our demands. Dissolution of the Galactic Council as a governing body, full independence for all member species, release of all subjugated populations, reparations for centuries of exploitation. Resic's hands were shaking. If we refuse, you've seen our fleet. Doyan turned back to face him. You've analyzed our weapons. You know what we're capable of? Do you really want to find out what happens when we stop waiting? This would mean war, Resic said. Billions would die. Perhaps trillions. Human worlds wool. Deburn alongside council worlds. Perhaps. Doyen's expression did not change. But we would survive. We always survive. Can you say the same about the Varric? The Krath. The Muravi. Your species have never faced a true existential threat. You don't know how to adapt. You don't know how to endure. He walked back to the table and placed his hands on its surface. We do. We've been doing it for 100,000 years. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, famines. Every time our extinction seemed certain, we found a way to keep going. That's what makes us different from you. That's what makes us dangerous. Minji stood beside him. You have one standard year, Ambassador. 1 year to begin dismantling the Council's power structure. After that, we will dismantle it for you. Resic looked at the faces around the table. Doyen, Minji, Yuna, the other humans he did not recognize. They were not angry. They were not emotional. They simply stated facts, the way a doctor might describe a terminal illness. What if some species choose to fight? Resic asked. The Krath Dominion will never accept this. They would rather die than surrender. Doyen nodded slowly. That is their choice. We will give them the same choice we give everyone. Accept our terms and live in peace, or refuse and face the consequences. We are not monsters, Ambassador. We don't want to destroy anyone, but we will not allow the Council to continue enslaving the galaxy. He stepped back from the table. 1 year. Use it wisely. The delegation was escorted back to their ship an hour later. As the vessel lifted off from New Busan, Resic stared down at the planet below. The lights of cities glittered in the growing darkness. Somewhere down there, humans were eating dinner with their families, playing with their children, living ordinary lives and preparing for war. Resic thought about Doyan's words. About the Sorel and the Vintari and all the other species the Council had consumed over the eons. He thought about the 60 million years of history, the grand traditions, the ancient powers that had ruled the galaxy since before his species had crawled out of the mud, and he realized, the chill that went to his core, that none of it mattered anymore. The galaxy had a new power now, and it was not interested in negotiating. The Krath Dominion struck first, 3 months after the meeting on New Busan. A Krath war fleet of 800 vessels jumped into the Kepler system. It was a human colony world, home to 4 million people. The Krath commander sent no warning, made no demands. He simply ordered his ships to open fire. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Krath believed they had destroyed every human installation in the system. Their sensors showed nothing but wreckage and silence. The commander sent a triumphant message back to his home world. The humans had been taught a lesson. Their hidden strength was a lie. The Council's enemies would burn. He was still transmitting when the human counterattack arrived. They came from behind an asteroid field where they had been hiding since the first Krath ship entered the system. 40 vessels against 800. The Krath commander laughed when he saw the numbers. Then the humans opened fire. The first railgun volley destroyed 200 ships in 30 seconds. The Krath formation scattered, trying to regroup, but the human vessels were faster and more maneuverable. They danced between the larger Krath warships, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the Krath fleet was gone. Every single ship destroyed or disabled. The human vessels gathered around the wreckage, searching for survivors to capture. They found very few. On Kepler, the colonists emerged from underground bunkers that had been built decades ago for exactly this situation. The Krath bombardment had destroyed surface structures, but the real settlements were deep beneath the ground. 4 million humans, untouched. The Krath Dominion learned about the defeat 3 days later. They immediately began assembling a larger fleet, 5,000 ships, nearly a third of their entire military. This time, they would crush the humans with overwhelming force. They never got the chance. While the Kraths were gathering their armada, human fleets struck at their supply lines, their communication relays, their outlying colonies. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing was conquered. But within 2 weeks, Krath Dominion was blind and cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The second battle came on the Krath's terms. In their own space, with their chosen fleet, it lasted 3 hours. Half the Krath armada was destroyed. The other half surrendered. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The mighty Krath, rulers of 3,000 star systems, brought to their knees by a species barely 3 centuries old. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was real. After the Krath fell, the other council species began to fracture. The Meravi Collective tried to organize a united defense, reaching out to every major power with calls for alliance. But too many species had old grudges against the council. The Sorel, still laboring in Varic mines, saw the human victory and began to dream of freedom. The Ventari remembered their lost cities and whispered about rebellion. Even some Varic questioned whether the council was worth saving within 6 months. The coalition had collapsed. Species that had been enemies for millions of years suddenly found common ground, not because they loved each other, but because they all feared what the council might do to them next. One by one, they sent messages to human space. They wanted to talk. They wanted to make deals. They wanted to survive. Admiral Do-Yeon Park received each delegation personally. His terms were always the same: full independence for every species, an end to forced tribute and labor, and membership in a new organization called the Galactic Commonwealth, equal partners, equal rights, no masters and no servants. Some species accepted immediately. Others bargained for special concessions. A few refused entirely and prepared to fight. Those few learned quickly that fighting humanity was not a winning strategy. On the first anniversary of the rejection, the day Do-Yeon had told the council no, in their own grand chamber, a ceremony was held aboard the UES Resolve. The ship now served as the temporary headquarters of the Commonwealth. It was filled with diplomats and advisors from dozens of species. Duhan stood on the observation deck, watching ships pass through the viewport. Human destroyers flew beside Sorel transports. Ventari science vessels communicated with Moravi trading ships. Even a few Varric had joined the Commonwealth. Abandoning their ancient traditions to embrace something new, Captain Unikim stood beside him. She had been promoted to vice admiral now, commanding her own fleet. But on days like this, she preferred to be here, watching history unfold. One year, she said, "It's hard to believe." Doyon nodded. "A lot can change in a year. Did you ever doubt?" Yuna asked. "When you walked into that chamber and told them we wouldn't bow, did you ever think we might lose?" Doyen considered the question carefully. He thought about the centuries of secret preparation, the hidden fleets, the weapons development, the intelligence operations that had mapped every council weakness long before the first invitation arrived. "No," he said finally. "We didn't come this far by accident. We didn't build those fleets because we hoped for the best. We did it because we knew what the galaxy was really like. We knew that eventually someone would try to conquer us. The only question was whether we would be ready. We were ready. We were always ready. That's who we are. That's who we've always been." The door to the observation deck opened. Dr. Tai Wuxin entered, holding the title of Commonwealth Director of Interspecies Relations. His job was to help the former council species adapt to their new freedom. It was difficult work, but he seemed to enjoy it, Admiral Taiwu said. "The Varric ambassador is requesting a meeting. He says his government is ready to discuss surrender terms." "Base surrender." Yuna raised an eyebrow. "The Varric haven't even fought us yet." "No, but they've been watching." Taiwu pulled up a data display. Their military analysts have been running simulations for months. Every scenario ends the same way. They can't beat us. They're not even sure they could slow us down. High Arbiter Tulvin has apparently decided that discretion is the better part of valor. Doyan turned away from the window. What are they asking for? Surprisingly reasonable terms. They want to maintain their core territory. They want economic cooperation with the Commonwealth. And they want... Taiwu paused. They want our help. Help with what? With changing? Tulvin says the Varric have been stagnant for millions of years. They built the council because they were afraid of being surpassed by younger species. Now they realize that fear was holding them back. They want to learn from us. They want to adapt. Doyan smiled, and this time there was actual warmth in it. "Tell the ambassador we'll meet tomorrow. And tell him to bring his best negotiators. We have a lot of work to do." Awu nodded and left. Yuna watched him go. "Do you trust them? The Varric, I mean. They've been our enemies for 3 centuries. They were never really our enemies," Doyan said. "They were afraid. Fear makes people do terrible things. But it doesn't have to last forever." He looked back out the window. The stars burned bright against the infinite darkness. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were waking up to a galaxy that no longer had masters. A galaxy where every species, no matter how young or how old, had the chance to chart their own course. It wasn't perfect. There would be conflicts. There would be setbacks. Some species would struggle with freedom after so many years of control. Some would make bad choices. Some would fail, but they would have the chance. That was what mattered. Governor Minji Cho had once asked Dojan what humanity wanted from the galaxy. His answer had been simple. A chance. That's all we ever wanted. A chance to grow. A chance to learn. A chance to become whatever we're meant to be. Now, they had that chance. And so did everyone else. The Commonwealth was not an empire. It was not a conquest. It was a promise that the strong would not crush the weak, that the old would not consume the young, that every voice would be heard and every life would matter. Whether they could keep that promise remained to be seen. But standing there on the observation deck, watching the ships of 100 species fly together under Commonwealth colors, Doyan believed they would try. They would keep trying, no matter how hard it got, because that's what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They endured, and they never, ever stopped reaching for the stars.